Welcome to the Den, the Dark Entertainment Network. I'm the Gothic Rose, and this is the hot mess of Hollywood. Yes, dear fiends of the Den, the Dark Entertainment Network is a channel where the news meets conspiracy theories. It makes babies in my brain and it comes out my mouth. We explore the darkest stories from the deepest corners of Hollywood and the world. If you like this sort of entertainment, be sure to like, follow, and hit that bell because I am not going to stop. It's the hot mess of Hollywood, and there is nothing else to talk about today except the Diddy trial. Who did get burned? Was it Diddy, the state of New York, or really anyone considered his victim? So, as we know, Diddy was arrested in September of 2024 and tried several times to get bail, even offered up his home in Miami of $50 million. Now, the judges had all said no to bail before trial. So, a lot of people thought he was going down hard. That is not exactly what happened. So, the charges that Diddy faced, and if you guys have followed or not followed Stephanie Sue, you must, because she just painted the most brilliant picture of this trial while it was going on. She was there in the courtroom every day. And if you didn't know, Stephanie Sue has a popular true crime and mystery podcast called Rotten Mango. So it definitely goes along with the Dark Entertainment Network because she does eerie, emotional, and darkly humorous stuff. And she has the most amazing way of telling a story. So go and check out all of her commentary, and content on the Diddy trial. Now let's get to what happened. So, what happened is they charged him with a whole bunch of stuff. So, one count of racketeering conspiracy, which is RICO, two counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and two counts of transporting to engage in prostitution, which is a Mann Act violation. So the jury verdict as of today, July 2nd, 2025, is not guilty in the racketeering conspiracy and not guilty in both sex trafficking charges, but guilty on two counts of violating the Mann Act, transportation for prostitution, which I personally find confusing because how can you violate the Mann Act engaging in prostitution, but not in sex trafficking? Are these two similar? Okay, so I had to know. Here are the differences. And again, this is why I'm confused as to why he is not guilty of sex trafficking. So the Mann Act and sex trafficking are very, very close, but the higher standard of burden of proof lies with sex trafficking. So the Mann Act, established in 1910, is a white slave traffic act. And this criminalizes transporting individuals across state lines for prostitution or any other immoral purposes. So Diddy was convicted for flying all of these women across state lines and coercing them for sexual acts, but the jury didn't find significant evidence for trafficking or racketeering, which I find honestly shocking, at least sex trafficking, if not RICO. So, RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, requires proof of ongoing criminal enterprise at least two predicate crimes. So, you would have to do something like drug trafficking and bribery, or drug trafficking and kidnapping, or bribery and kidnapping. And maybe because there were receipts for payments, he didn't get charged with RICO. So the jury was deadlocked on this change. Some jurors were unconvinced that Combs' actions met the threshold of organized crimes, which just tells me, possibly as I jump ahead of myself, that maybe he got to some of the jurors. And sex trafficking requiring proof of force, fraud, or Coercion, again, the jury found is insufficient to meet this high burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And again, I start to think that maybe he got to some of the jury. I mean, it wasn't a full acquittal. So that's good. I don't know how many years he's going to get. Let's just see what's happening. But there are other cases of the Mann Act with celebrities, most notably Charlie Chaplin's case in 1943 and 1944. And I did mention this on one of my few podcasts about Charlie Chaplin himself, accused of violating the Mann Act by transporting actress Joan Barry across state lines for immoral purposes. Now, they're saying the case was politically charged by FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, and who reportedly targeted Chaplin for his leftist views, but he still did what he did. But Chaplin, of course, was ultimately acquitted, and the scandal damaged his reputation, contributing to his exile from the United States. Now, there are lots of other high profile Mann Act cases. So, Jack Johnson in 1913, this was the first major Mann Act conviction, and this was widely seen as racially motivated. Now, Chuck Berry in 1962, convicted under the Mann Act for transporting a 14-year-old girl, and R. Kelly in 2021, convicted of RICO and Mann Act violations in a broader sex trafficking case. So it surprises me that R. Kelly was convicted on RICO, but Diddy wasn't. It could be because of his ties to Mayor Eric Adams, who should have resigned a long time ago because he was indicted himself. And we know Adams has aligned himself with MAGA and is now running as an independent to stay mayor of New York. And everyone else is going crazy over Zoran Madmani, who's pissing everybody off, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who left the Bronx at 5 years old and moved to Yorktown, but still considers herself a Bronx girl, and everyone's mad about it. It's so funny. So I'll be honest, I was thinking that this would be like a total OJ acquittal. I think that the state of New York keeps getting it wrong with these high profile cases. They went after Andrew Cuomo and managed to get him out as governor, only to have him come back and run for mayor. He didn't make it, but you know what I'm saying? It's just so odd. They went after Donald Trump on tax evasion. He's supposed to be paying the state of New York. That hasn't happened. And now they went after Diddy and couldn't get a full conviction. And it seems to me like everyone who's running Southern District of New York wants to make themselves famous on high profile cases rather than just put their money and trials towards helping the actual working people of New York City, New York State, whichever part of New York State they are in charge of, which I think is up to like Dutchess County or something. The point being, how much did this trial cost New York City taxpayers to only be found guilty of 2 out of 5 charges? And how much did it cost to house Diddy when you could have just put him out on bail and, you know, he might walk. He might walk today. We don't know. Right now, as we speak, Diddy's lawyers are actively seeking his release following this verdict. So his lawyers are arguing that he was acquitted for the most serious charges of racketeering and sex trafficking, and his only conviction was violating the Mann Act, transporting individuals for prostitution, and he has no prior convictions and poses no flight risk, and his family is president and can sign a $1 million bond, and they're requesting permission for Diddy to return to his Miami Beach home and travel between New York, LA, and Florida. That's a lot. Like, that is a lot. At least just say return to your Miami Beach home and stay there for 5 years. because now you're looking like you want to go back to violating the Mann Act and maybe go back into trafficking and end up doing some RICO stuff. So now the government opposition, Maureen Comey, argued that convicted individuals must remain detained unless the court finds they are not a flight risk or a danger to the community, and highlighted the fact that Diddy faces a maximum 20-year sentence for these two counts that can face up to 10 years each. So the judge said he needed time to review these statuses and requested written submissions from both sides by 1 p.m. EST, so Eastern Standard Time. It is 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right now. No immediate decision was made. So at the time that I am making this podcast, Diddy was returned to his holding cell amid courtroom cheers. Now, I would like to know who was cheering and why they were cheering. Just like when that lady interrupted the trial, started screaming all of these things about Diddy, and then she was outside saying that they were trying to ruin his legacy. Were they cheering because he wasn't charged with RICO and sex trafficking, or were people cheering because he may face up to 20 years in prison? I mean, I think it's really odd to be found guilty of 2 of the 5 charges and say, hey, judge, listen, he spent some time in jail. It's not the most serious charges. So it was only the Mann Act, like no big deal. It's just, taking people across state lines for prostitution. I am just one big giant pimp. And why should I have to do time for that? Let me go back to my mansion. Here's $1 million. Oh, also, I want to be able to fly a little Bermuda Triangle myself between New York, LA, and Miami so that I can violate the Mann Act all over again, because I can't wait for my next freak off. And that is what the hell it sounds like. Let me know what you think in the comments. And thank you for joining me on the Hot Mess of Hollywood in the Den. I am the nerd who loves research. And if you do have any tips for me, please email me at welcometothedenpodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy this content and even pettier content on my Hot Mess of Hollywood, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And thank you for joining me in the den.